Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the Week 11 edition Sunday Sideline Report here on the Sports Insanity Network. I am Mike Rifkin, going to take you through Week 11 in the National Football League. About that. Sorry about that. Just going through some things right now. But we're going to go through week 11. We're going to preview a lot of important games. We'll get into a lot of big stuff. We'll talk about what happened Thursday night. We've got news coming out of Jacksonville and Chicago and New York. We will get into all of that as well. I do want to start with this. Just give me 1 second here. I apologize. I want to start with what happened the game Thursday night between the Eagles and the Commanders. It was a game. It was a great game. Let's get that started. It was a fantastic game, a 26-18 win for the Philadelphia Eagles, as they have now won 6 straight games. They've rediscovered their identity. They've rediscovered their identity from 2 years ago, where they went to the Super Bowl, which is, we are going to be the more physical football team, and we're going to be the more physical football team, and we're going to dominate the line of scrimmage. And then offensively, our running game is going to set up the play action pass. And by the way, the the Saquon Barkley signing, guys, it paid dividends. It's paid dividends all year. We'll get into what he did on Thursday night in a minute. So I am just getting going here. Sorry about that. I had some things to take care of. But Barkley paying dividends, another phenomenal game for Saquon Barkley. As he 26 carries, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. Both touchdowns in the second half, a 23-yard run and a 39-yard run, both of the fourth quarter, seemingly putting the game on ice for Philadelphia. There was a Zach Ertz touchdown late. And Washington got the 2-point conversion. Washington has now lost 2 in a row for the first time this year. Phillies, I mentioned, has won 6 straight games. Just some numbers from the game. Jaden Daniels, 22 of 32, 191 yards, a touchdown, and interception. Brian Robinson had a return to the line, 63 yards and a touchdown. Austin Eckler, 8 catches for 89 yards. Terry McLaurin was held to 1 catch by the Philadelphia defense. For Philly, Jalen Hurts was 18 of 28 for 221 yards. He did have a tush-push touchdown. Saquon, as I mentioned, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. Had a big play receiving as well. That was a huge play in the game. A.J. Brown, 5 catches, 65 yards. So Washington goes to 7-4. Philly to 8-2. They look what they looked like 2 years ago, where they were the best team in the NFC all year. They're running the ball down people's throats with Saquon and the tush push, and they're healthy up front, and they're healthy at receiver with both Smith and AJ Brown returning. Goddard's back. That is a huge boost for them as well. The only thing that can stop this team, in my opinion, is the head coach. And Sirianni at times makes boneheaded decisions. Let's be real about that. Whether it's going for it or going for a 2-point conversion for God knows whatever reason. I think that's the one thing that can hold them up. They have young corners who are playing really well. Quinyon Mitchell was great Thursday night against Terry McLaurin. So listen, Philly's played extremely well here. Give them a ton of credit. Would I take them today in a game against Detroit? Probably not, but I think right now those are your two best teams in the NFC. Philly's next two games are actually very hard, very difficult, in my opinion. Next Sunday, they're going to go to LA. They're going to play the Rams. That's a Sunday night game. And then in 2 weeks, they're going to go to Baltimore and play the Ravens. So those two games are going to be very interesting for Philly, for how they want to play, especially, which is running the ball and then setting up play action. Baltimore, you can't, they're not. They'll stop the run, but against the pass, and we'll get into Baltimore later. They got a huge game this afternoon. There were two key plays in this game from Washington's point of view. Fourth quarter, down, I think they were down 12-10 at this point. Yeah, they're down 12-10. 4th and 2 from the 26. You can get the field goal there. Dan Quinn decides he's going to go for it. They use a Jaden Daniels run. It doesn't work. Philly gets the ball. Saquon scores. Pretty much ices it. I don't have an issue with Dan Quinn going for it. But I really don't. What I would have liked to see there is probably putting the ball in either Robinson or Eckler's hands instead of having Jaden Daniels run the ball. I still think Jaden Daniels is bothered by that rib injury that he had. You see it at times. He goes to his ribs. So I still think he's bothered by it to a degree. Listen, I give Washington a ton of credit. They're 7-4. And this is the first time they're facing a little bit of adversity, dropping 2 in a row. I think Dan Quinn's done a really good job. Obviously, Daniels has done a great job. Cliff Kingsbury, I think, as the offensive coordinator, has done a really good job as well. They're next too. They get the Cowboys next week at home, and then they get the Tennessee Titans at home. So those are two games they should probably win, especially with the news out of Dallas earlier this week. We'll get into it. The two teams will play again in Washington right before Christmas. So go from there. So Philly 8-2, they get the win. Washington 7-4. And to be honest, I'm not concerned about Washington at this point for this reason. I didn't know if they were going to win 7 games. I think they've had a heck of a year. It's not done by any stretch of the imagination. But now they know what it's like. If you go back to last week, they played Pittsburgh in that tough game for them. Mike Williams touchdown late. And you kind of wonder if that took the air out of them. but they played 2 physical games in 4 days. So I give them hallmarks there. And you could see what the Washington Commanders are going to be under Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, and they're gonna have to surround Jaden Daniels with some talent. They have 2 good running backs. They need another receiver opposite Terry McLaurin. De'Ami Brown's a nice playmaker, but he hasn't proven much yet. So they need a number 2 receiver. Ertz has had a phenomenal year for them. He's had a really good year. And this defense has played pretty well too for the most part. They struggled a little bit on Thursday, but you know what? It happens. So Washington will play Dallas next week at Washington. Philly goes to LA. They'll play the Rams Sunday night. Chris Collinsworth will tell you there's a guy. All right. So those are that was Thursday night's game. I do want to dive around the league with some news and notes. Something Ian Rappaport put out last night, and I have yet to read the story. So I'm going to read and react live with you guys here. And it has to do with the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is up on NFL.com. Again, by Ian Rappaport. Headlines: Jaguars could see another regime change with loss to the Lions today, or on Sundays, what he put. Recent history appears to be on the way to repeating itself in Jacksonville. The Jaguars, mirrored in a miserable rut after losing 4 of their last 5 games, might be looking at another regime change for 2025, and sources say a dramatic move could come as soon as this week, pending the results of Sunday's game against the Lions. Jacksonville enters its bye in Week 12, which could serve as an ideal time to regroup. It's a stunning fall for a team that owner Shad Khan considered the best, quote, the best team assembled, close quote, in franchise history, and rivals agree it is talented. It is also a continuation of a slide that began in 2023 when an 8-3 rise turned into a 9-8 tumble to miss the playoffs. Despite high expectations with a newly paid quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, several high-profile free agents and high draft picks, the results have been the same. Mac Jones will start at quarterback on Sunday, with Lawrence still nursing a left shoulder injury. Inside the building, several sources say change, including the organization potentially moving on from Doug Peterson and GM Trent Baalke, would not be a surprise based on several conversations. While Jaguar staffers are still working and grinding there's a Paul permitting the situation a doom. If Peterson is out, QB coach Mike McCoy does have head coaching experience and could be the one to step in, having coached the Chargers from 2013 to 2016. All right. Let's take that part first, and then we'll dive into the rest. I agree with a lot of that, what was written, and that is, I think the Jaguars are a massive disappointment this year. Trevor Lawrence has not played well. Doug Peterson has not done a great job this year. And I do think it's a continuation of their collapse from last year, which by all accounts, they did. They choked away a playoff spot to the Texans. Kind of like the Titans did 2 years ago to the Jaguars. But I kind of wonder this. I wonder this for this reason. Remember 2 years ago, the Titans choked and they beat the Jaguars beat Josh Dobbs in the last game of the year to get into the playoffs, and then they played the Chargers. They fall behind 27-0, and in classic Charger fashion, the Chargers choke the game away, and the Jags win. Did we put too much pressure on the Jacksonville Jaguars after that moment? I'm asking that because this is a team we all have a high expectation for, myself included, with Trevor Lawrence at the helm and Doug Peterson. Did we put too much on the Jags? I don't know. Are they talented? Absolutely. But I go back to week one, and they're playing the Dolphins, and they're in control of that game. And Travis Etienne fumbles the ball out of the end zone for a touchback. And that was the turning point of that game. And it feels like the Jacksonville Jaguars never recovered from that moment, and they never recovered from blowing the division last year. That's what it feels like. So Rapport goes on. Whether a dramatic coaching move with Peterson, a front office move centered around Balky, or a full house cleaning comes this upcoming week following a possible loss to Detroit, those inside the building feel it's almost inevitable. Sometimes by this point, there's finger pointing within a building, either personnel blaming coaching and vice versa. That doesn't seem to be the case here, with a collective acknowledgement that if things keep going this way, it's a failure for all and everyone is at fault. As one source explained, it's all of us. Everyone has a hand in it. For the Jaguars, a midseason change would not be unprecedented. In late November of 2020, GM Dave Caldwell was fired after 3 seasons of 10 straight losses, with coach Doug Marrone and his staff tasked finishing out the season. Balky served as the interim GM. 2021, Com fired Urban Meyer less than 1 year into a disastrous stint. Darrell Bevell was named the interim. Taking on one of the NFL's best teams Sunday with a backup QB, plenty in Jacksonville are fearing the worst. And the quote. All right. I think that raises a really good question. I think there's a couple of really good questions in there. If you were to fire, Doug Peterson, who's coming in? That's my first question. And I don't want to hear Mike McCoy is going to be the interim. I want to think long term here. Who's coming in? Who are we expecting to have be brought in? Who's the name? Vrabel? Is Vrabel going to come in? Is Bill Belichick going to be given full autonomy? You know, if Bill Belichick's being given full autonomy, then we could have a different conversation. I don't know who's coming in. And what's the mandate next year in Jacksonville? Is it playoffs or bust? What's the mandate? Now, we know Shad Khan is going to be willing to spend the money. He has shown that. He continues to show that he's willing to spend the money. It's why Tony Khan spends so much on free agent wrestlers for AEW. Shout out the Face Turn podcast. I think what we have to go through here with Jacksonville is this. There was a line in there, everyone has a hand in it. I think the problem is this. We can't blame the person we want to blame. And the person I would like to blame just got paid $275 million. Trevor Lawrence has not had a good year. Trevor Lawrence has struggled. He has had moments. Trevor Lawrence, his numbers this year are not pretty. 11 touchdowns and 6 picks for a guy making that $275 million. QBR 62. Completion percentage is 61.3. 11 touchdowns, 6 picks. He's been sacked 18 times, 87.9 QB rating. What the difference is between QBR and the rating, I don't know. He does have 3 rushing touchdowns this year. But if you look at game logs here, and I'm looking here on ESPN, his best game, they're for 308 against the Packers and 2 touchdowns. His best game, 371 and 2 touchdowns against the Colts. He always seems to play well against. He always plays well against the Colts. But there's a lot of ones in here. And when I say ones, I mean in yards. 162 yards, 178, 169, 193, 169. And as much as I like Trevor Lawrence, and I do, excuse me, I thought coming out of Clemson he'd be a superstar. He really hasn't lived up to that. And I don't know if it's like the fact that he had Urban Meyer the first part of his rookie year. I don't know what it is. He has struggled immensely at times. And I think they have to. Now, also part of the reason Christian Kirk has been in and out of the lineup. Brian Thomas has been great rookie year. But, ETN's been in and out. I don't know what to finger point this thing on. And this defense has had issues for a few years now. So this isn't your days of Blake Bortles. So listen, you've committed to Trevor. I think you'll remain committed to Trevor. But to give him his third coach already, I think that's a problem. I view that as a problem. If he's going to be on his third coach already, and who's shaking this thing up? I think there's only one guy, and it would be Vrabel. The reason why I would say Vrabel over Belichick here is because I don't know how many years Belichick's going to want to coach. So unless Belichick is going to come in, maybe he brings Vrabel with him as the DC, and he goes, I'm going to coach the team for 3 years, and after the third year, Mike Vrabel's taking over. That's the only move I could see making it work. I don't think that's a job Bill Belichick wants, but maybe money talks. I don't know. I do not know. So that's out of Jacksonville. We'll see what happens today. They play the Lions at 1:00. The line in that game is the Lions minus 14. So good luck to the Jags and Mac Jones. By the way, that second part to that really quick before I close off that. I might consider shutting Trevor Lawrence down for the season. And at 2-8, I might just say, screw it. I'm going for the draft pick. I'll pick in the top 5 or 6. Maybe I can get Will Campbell, the tackle from LSU. Maybe I can work on this defense. Something. And I wouldn't risk Trevor Lawrence getting hurt. So there's that too. So that's the scene out in Jacksonville. Scene in Chicago. The Bears fired Shane Waldron earlier this week after there was some complaints about Waldron and this offense that is scuffled at times. It has led some people to believe maybe Caleb Williams should be benched for Tyson Badgett. Listen, if you draft Caleb Williams number one overall, he has to play. You can't bench him midseason because that's going to crush his confidence. So you take the good with the bad with Caleb. Now he's going to learn some things. Primarily, he's got to learn to throw some balls away, and he can't think he could just make all these plays running around. He's going to have to throw some balls away. I think he takes too many sacks that are on him, where he tries to extend too much. At times, just either run or throw the ball away. Make quicker decisions. They gave him good weapons this offseason, thinking they were going to go for it. And look, he's had moments. He's had games where he's played extremely well. He's had games where he's played extremely poorly. But he's a rookie quarterback. To expect everybody to come in and do what CJ Stroud did last year, or expect what Jaden Daniels is doing, well, guess what? Jaden Daniels has hit a little bit of a rut. While he's still playing, he still hit a bit of a rut. So let's simmer down there, folks. And next year, if the Bears don't make the playoffs, Caleb Williams will have a new coach. Who that coach will be, my guess is they're going to target Cliff Kingsbury, who was the OC for Caleb at USC the last couple of years. Maybe they target Lincoln Riley. Who knows? Lincoln Riley hasn't done great at USC. Maybe that's the way he gets into the NFL. He coaches Caleb Williams. I don't know. Interesting stuff there out of Chicago. With Shane Waldron out as the offensive coordinator. Huge game for the Bears today. Rivalry game. They play the Packers I believe it's in Chicago. Yep. In Chicago. Line on that one is the Packers -5.5. All right. Now we're going into New York stuff. Aaron Rodgers claims he wants to play again next year. Jeff Ulbrich, the coach, basically said with open arms the Jets will welcome him back. If I'm the Jets, I don't want Aaron Rodgers back. I think Aaron Rodgers needs to understand a couple of things. I think the biggest thing Aaron Rodgers needs to realize is next year he's going to be a 41-year-old quarterback. And unless there's a pathway for him and he sees it, I don't know where you go and think you're an instant Super Bowl contender. And let me be brutally honest with you. This experiment, and shout out Danny Boy Reginald, because Dan has said it from the beginning. As great as Rodgers was, this thing blew up in the Jets' face. And he's going to be 41 next year. There's no way after this debacle. Now, if the Jets miraculously find themselves into the playoffs, all bets are off. But this thing blew up on them. And it blew up quickly because this team quickly developed an ego. The moment Aaron Rodgers came in, this team developed an ego it did not deserve. But because of people saying they're a quarterback away, this is a top defense with a quarterback that needs a quarterback. Well, last year, they go out and they get Rodgers. 4 plays into his first game, torn Achilles. They had to rely on Zach Wilson. Didn't work, whatever. This year, Rodgers is back. They're going to get to the AFC title game. It's a given. They're 3-7. Now, not all of this is on Rodgers. Let me make that perfectly clear. Not all of this is Aaron Rodgers' fault. But there's no more scapegoats. Robert Saleh's gone. Mike Williams is now gone. His boy Nate Hackett's not calling plays anymore. Who's the scapegoat now? Who's the next one? Can't be Ulbrich because he's going to be the coach till the end of the year. And he won't be the coach next year. Not that I don't think he wants to be the coach next year. He's not going to be the coach next year. The effort this team showed last week against the Arizona Cardinals was, in a word, pathetic. They were pathetic. They moved the ball up and down the field. They couldn't punch it into the end zone. Defensively, they can't tackle. Sauce Gardner can't tackle. The key play to the game was they're down 14-6. Trey McBride catches a ball. And if Sauce makes this tackle, it's 4th down and they got to punt. Instead, Sauce can't make the tackle. McBride turns up field for 17. Cardinals score. It's 21-6. They don't tackle. They don't tackle. They don't make plays. Devontae and Aaron are still not on the same page. They're going to go off today, though, because I'm saying that. You're 3-7. And Aaron Rodgers will tell Pat McAfee on Tuesday, whether they win or lose, we just got to stay the course. We got to do this and that. Here's the thing. This thing is blown up for me to the point where next year or after this season, Robert Saleh's already gone. Joe Douglas, out. Aaron Rodgers, out. Woody Johnson, go back and serve as the ambassador to the UK if you want. Not that I think Christopher Johnson will do any better. He's also not that, great. He hired Joe Douglas. This team needs an identity. Past couple of years, they could hang their hat on the defense. You can't hang your hat on this defense. You can hang your head on this defense. It's a problem. It's a problem that they can't tackle. It's a problem that they don't score points. And you can point to any game, whether it's Denver, the Vikings, the Bill game, and sit there and say, we can win. We can win any of those games. 100% you could have. And I'm going to point the finger and go, well, you should have lost to the Tennessee Titans. The Aaron Rodgers experiment failed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the Jets next year are going to need a quarterback, a head coach, and a general manager. And then we have to come to this conversation. They have to decide what they're going to do with Sauce and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Remember, Brees Hall doesn't get that fifth year option. He wasn't a first round pick. So they're going to have to decide if they're going to pay Brees Hall. They're going to have to pay Garrett Wilson top receiver money. Sauce is going to want top corner money. All of a sudden, this huge window you thought you had, it shrinks because now you have to pay these guys. I don't know what's next for this football team. They got Indy today. They lose their 3-8. They win their 4-7, which would tie them with Indy, same record. And you know what? If you look through their schedule, as I pull it up on here, they still have both Dolphin games. They still got to play the Seahawks, which not a bad team. It's a Geno revenge game too. Uh, they'll Here's the layup. They play the Jaguars. They play the Rams. Oh yeah, and they still got to go to Buffalo. So that's the part for me. I don't know what comes next personally, but man, they got an ego. They should have checked it at the door because it hasn't worked. So that's the issue with the Jets. The Giants, look, there are people who are talking about benching Daniel Jones. And while I agree, Daniel Jones is just, he's not even as good as Mr. Jones from the Counting Crows song. Let's get that straight. We tell each other fairy tales, but letting Saquon Barkley walk doesn't have the same effect on Daniel Jones. Jones was great 2 years ago because Barkley was healthy. And they ran the ball extremely well and they did some things. They also got very lucky 2 years ago. Lamar had a fumble going into the end zone against them. The Titan game week 1, they go for 2. Showed the guts of Dable. Tommy DeVito's not an answer. Drew Lock's not an answer. If those guys were answers, they'd be starters in this league. Tommy DeVito had good moments last year. I'm not going to deny that. But do I really want to sit here and watch 6 more games of Tommy DeVito? Do I want to watch 6 games of Daniel Jones? No. I'd rather call up Eli and see what Eli's got in the tank. Or Phil Simms. But to put this on Dable and Shane because, well, they paid Daniel Jones. Well, they can get out of the contract after the year. This team's not talented enough. They're just not. I would give Dable and Shane some more time. And by more time, I really mean 2 years. The only way it won't work for me is if Belichick really wants this gig. Excuse me. It's the only way. But one thing's for sure. Daniel Jones, he ain't the quarterback of the New York Giants next year. And right now, that quarterback's not on this roster. Who the quarterback is? Who the hell knows? It's not draft season yet, so we'll get there. So those are kind of your news and notes stuff, and I had to get the Giant stuff off my chest. See if I'm missing anything. Uh, Oh, I want to get into the Cowboys. That's what I want to get into. Um, Dak's gonna undergo surgery for his hamstring. Um, I don't love the shot the owner took at Dak Prescott last week. I also don't love the fact that Jerry Jones keeps making some lame excuses. The sun, the sun got in CD's eyes, so he dropped the touchdown. Asked if he would put curtains or shade in. No, I built the stadium, the way I want to. But the subtle shot at Dak, and I can't phrase the question because I don't remember. But the answer was, well, we only won 3 games with Dak Prescott. And I sat there and I heard that comment and I said, you know what? That's a man who doesn't believe in his $60 million a year quarterback. That's a man who didn't want to pay Dak Prescott. That's a man who was told, whether it was by his son or someone else, we got to pay Dak. Jerry don't want to pay Dak. Jerry never wanted to pay Dak. Jerry has never wanted to pay Dak. Remember, he took care of Zeke when Zeke went to Cabo, even though Zeke had 2 years left on his deal. He's never wanted to take care of Dak for whatever the reason is. He doesn't like Dak. So we all know Mike McCarthy's gone at the end of the year. Is Dak Prescott gone before he can make his $60 million? I know one team I'll trade for him. I know one. The Raiders. Outside of that, I don't know. Outside of that, I do not know. But I got to tell you, I think the Cowboys have an identity crisis. And I think it's time we peel off the star on the helmet. We take off the midfield star. And we just put a picture of Jerry Jones. And here's the kicker, guys. Mike McCarthy's not coming back. Jerry Jones has royally, in my opinion, messed up his entire franchise. Because Mike McCarthy should have been fired after the Packer game. You had the guy there, probably Dan Quinn, who you could have just promoted to head coach and he would have taken the gig. You wouldn't have lost players in free agency. And then you could have said, you know what? Dak put up numbers, but they're not good numbers because we fell behind really early in that game against Green Bay. Let's explore the market for Dak. Trade market. Just because teams are going to, and I get it, there was a dead cap situation. Well, you could, I believe, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I believe they could have expanded it to it's a little bit every year for the next couple of years, like a carryover. I don't. Jerry never believed in Dak. Jerry didn't want to believe in Dak. I think Dak Prescott's played his last game in Dallas. I really do. And I think next year he's the quarterback of the Raiders. Or the other team might be the Tennessee Titans. But they're going to have to make some other decisions there because Will Levis ain't that guy. But we'll digress. Cowboys, they'll play tomorrow night. Maybe they'll ask Troy Aikman to play instead of Cooper Rush. Who knows? All right, on to today's action. We got some big ones. Um, Starting the 1 o'clocks. Ravens Steelers, first place on the line in the AFC North. First division game for the Steelers this year. Probably their toughest game so far this year, too. Listen, I was wrong. Russell Wilson has been really good since becoming the starter, and he's going to need to be good again today. Raven defense, 32nd against the pass. They've been fighting against the run. We're waiting on word on Jalen Warren. But here's the thing about Pittsburgh. It's the team Lamar Jackson plays his worst against. And that's a stadium he plays his worst in. So they're going to have to figure out. Lamar's going to have to play well today. But he's also never had Derrick Henry against the Steelers. There's something about this Baltimore team, and I just love them. I think they go into Pittsburgh today, and I think the Ravens win. I think it's close, and I think it's good. By the way, this is overtaken Packers, Bears, or whatever you want to put. This is the best rivalry in football right now, Ravens, Steelers. These two teams hate each other, despise each other, and it's really good. It's really good action. I like the Ravens on the road. I really do. There's something about the Ravens this year. And I think this comes down to which quarterback makes a bigger play. And I think Lamar's going to make a big play. I think Zay Flowers has been so good. The reintroduction of Mark Andrews to this offense, they got weapons in Baltimore. They got weapons. Briefly, we talked Jags lines earlier about the situation with the Jags. The Lions, listen, they got away with one last week where they played terrible. Would not want to be the Jags this week. Rams Patriots, which is a Super Bowl rematch. Rams needed this game after what happened Monday night. Stay afloat. Brown Saints doesn't really matter. Colts Jets. Anthony Richardson's going to start for the Colts after a 2-week benching and playing Joe Flacco, who played abysmal the last 2 weeks. Look, here's the thing for me on the Colts. I don't even know what the hell they're doing. Richardson's in, he's out, he's in, he's out, he's in there. Can't keep playing him like a yo-yo. Either he plays or he doesn't play. I will say this. I think his legs are a huge factor today. Saw it last week. The Jets struggled with the mobile quarterback, Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler Murray had James Conner, who's played really well. Anthony Richardson's got Jonathan Taylor. The Colts should be able to run the ball today. And if I'm Shane Steichen, that would be my game plan. But I've been screaming for a long time. I think the Colts need a couple of things. They need a number one receiver. Michael Pittman's a nice player. I don't think he's a one. Alec Pierce is a nice player. He's not a one. Josh Downs is a good slot guy. But they don't have a true number one. They need to go get one. Maybe that's T. Higgins in the offseason. I don't know. But I've been screaming for a long time that they need a one. And we talked about the Jets earlier. Vikings, Titans. Listen, the Vikings are still a great football team. Won last week in spite of Sam Darnold. I still think they are a great football team and that they're going to win today. Packers, Bears. Historically, it's the best rivalry. But Aaron Rodgers owned the Bears for a long time. We'll see what Jordan Love does this week. If the Packers are going to make a run, Jordan Love's got to cut back on the turnovers. That's been the bugaboo. And that's what really cost them against Detroit a couple of weeks ago. And that's really what led Jacksonville back into the game they played not long ago either. He just can't turn the football over. They have really good young receivers, and they got Josh Jacobs, who's had a really good year. Just establish the run, play action, use Jordan Love's legs for Pete's sake. And for the Bears, I'm intrigued by seeing what they're going to do offensively now. New OC, Caleb Williams, once again, he's got to learn. He's going to learn this. He can't always think about making the play. He's got to be smart, throw balls away. If you have to eat a sack, don't lose 10 to 15 yards. Lose two or three, and you can go from there. But listen, the Bears are at 4-5, Packers 6-3. It's a big game in the NFC. The Falcons and the Broncos are going to play in Denver. Listen, Denver had that game against the Chiefs. They let it slip away. Bo Nix has been really good. Cortland Sutton's had a nice year. That Bronco defense is extremely underrated for how well they've played. And they're going up against a Falcon team that laid an egg last week against the Saints. And I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna score a ton of points this week either against this Bronco defense that's been superb. You know, I'm excited about the Patrick Surtain versus Drake London matchup. I think that's intriguing. How the Falcons utilize Bijan Robinson in this game. There's gonna be a battle in trenches. See what happens there, but should be a fun one in Denver. Niners Seahawks in San Francisco. I think the Niners now with McCaffrey back, they won't have Kittle today, but I am big on the Niners and how they've played, and I think they're a massive threat in the NFC when they're fully healthy. So Seattle, listen, Seattle needs this game too, but we'll see what happens in San Francisco. Game of the week, we got the Bills and the Chiefs. Actually, you know what? I'm going to save that for last. uh, just give me 1 second, everybody. I'm getting somebody in here, and I am trying my hardest to figure this thing out. Uh, uh, just give me 1 second. Um, but anyway, we got the Bengals and the Chargers tonight, Sunday night football on NBC. Huge game, playoff implications. I don't think a lot of people realize how good the Chargers are. Hold on 1 more second. I am trying to learn this thing on the fly. This is why technology and I do not go together. But anyway, that's a huge game tonight. The Bengals and the Chargers. that's not what I want. All right, hold on. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing. No. All right. Hold on. That's just out of the question right now. uh, but yeah, this is a huge game. The Bengals are still playing for their playoff lives, while the Chargers are 6-3, which I don't think a lot of people saw coming uh, at this point in the year. Uh, I don't know how to do. All right, listen. Huge game in the AFC for the playoff predicament between the Bengals and the Chargers. Uh, but again, both teams are huge game. Burrow's been sensational for the Bengals. Herbert is been really good as well. Chargers been very physical, running the ball and doing a lot of damage with J.K. Dobbins. They got Gus Edwards back. And the Charger defense has been sensational. So this is going to be a really interesting stylistic. Also, the Bengals should have T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson back tonight. So that's huge for them and their quest for the playoffs. Then we got the big one, 425 CBS Chiefs Bills rematch AFC divisional playoffs. Look, both these teams are different from when they've last seen each other. The Bills defense has been phenomenal. They don't have any Bill defense has been phenomenal. Josh Allen, I think Josh Allen needs to be mentioned more in the MVP conversation, not just because I said it at the beginning of the year, but he's just been sensational. They don't have a number one receiver, but listen, they get Amari Cooper back today. Um, they will not have Dalton Kincaid, so Dawson Knox is going to play, have a big role tight end wise. Listen, and we know Mahomes and what Mahomes has done with DeAndre Hopkins since he's come over. That's reinvigorated Travis Kelce into this offense. This is going to be an epic showdown for epic proportions. I'm going to say this. I think today's the day. I think the Bills win this one. One, they always win the regular season game. They've won. I think Allen's 3-1 in the regular season against Mahomes. They just don't win it in the playoffs. I think this is I think they win. I think they beat Mahomes today. But if the Bills, let me say this, I think if the Bills lose this game, it hurts their credibility in my eyes for this reason. They went into Baltimore, got manhandled. They went into Houston, lost that game. Now you're playing Kansas City. And look, I'm not going to sit here and talk narrative, although I'm talking narrative. The narrative's going to be those are probably your three other division winners in the AFC, and you've lost all of them. And it's going to beg me to ask this question. There's one team the Bills have beaten that we could classify as a really good team. And that's the Cardinals in week one, and we didn't know how good they'd be. But outside of that, look who the Bills have beaten. Beat the Dolphins twice. Mentioned the Cardinals. Beat the Jaguars. Beat the Jets. Beat the Titans. Beat the Seahawks. In Seattle, they beat the Seahawks, so I'm going to give them credit on that one. And then last week, they beat one in Indy. Now they're coming into the stretch. They play the Chiefs. They'll play the Niners. They'll play the Rams, the Lions. They still have both Patriot games, which I think is really weird. So I'll say this: I think it's a huge game in Buffalo. I think the Bills win, and I think I'm not going to say they win handily, but I think the Bills win this one. I really do. I think the Bills win. They'll hand the Chiefs their first loss. If Kansas City wins this one, if Kansas City wins this one, that then we're going to have the potential conversation of can they do it? But they're I'm pulling up their schedule for a second because if Kansas City loses this one, they play the Panthers next week, should be a win. Play the Raiders on Black Friday. Remember, the Raiders beat them on Christmas, so they play the Chargers on the December 8th, Browns, Texans, Steelers, Broncos. So if the Chiefs win today, their first loss, in my opinion, be either December 8th, the Chargers, or the 21st, the Texans. They may lose the 15th to Cleveland, too. But listen, story for another day. I can't wait for that game, 425 CBS. Fantasy player of the day for me this week, Tyreek Hill. 10 touchdowns in 12 career games against the Raiders. He found the end zone for the first time since week one last week. I think the Dolphins, who somehow still have a hope for the playoffs, beat the Raiders today. Keep the good times going. I think Tyreek Hill has a day. All right, that'll do it for this edition. Week 11 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report here on the Sports Insanity Network. I am Mike Rifkin. Thank you for tuning in. Check us out. Facebook, Sports Insanity Network. Twitter, S Insanity Real. You can follow me personally on Twitter, Punmaster Rifkin. I'm also now on Blue Sky. Same handle, Punmaster Rifkin. So check those out if you would like. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. Right, blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. Let's continue the fun, man. Let's continue the fun. YouTube, we're live. Like, comment, subscribe. Do what you got to do. Click the bell for the notifications. SIP, weekly SIP. I think they're doing one live every week. So enjoy it, man. We got content coming. Shout out our friend Rudy Campos and Sweep the League. They're doing great stuff over there, too. Enjoy them. They're live every night, usually around 9 Eastern time. So give them a follow. Check them out as well. So enjoy football today. That Bills-Chiefs game should be something special outside of Tony Romo calling it. Everyone have a great time watching the games today, and we'll check back in with you next week for the Week 12 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report here on the Sports Insanity Network YouTube channel. Enjoy the games, everybody.